Good morning. Welcome to the Universalist Church in which love is the spirit. We are glad you are here, whether you're here in the sanctuary today or anywhere in the world on our live stream. I'm Sherri Englehart-Shea, one of your representatives on the Board of Trustees. If you are a visitor, we hope you'll sign one of our guest books at either entrance to the sanctuary or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more. There you can use the contact page to get onto our electronic mailing list, which is the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become a part of the Universalist Church. Today we'll have fellowship in Fisk Hall and through Zoom. If you need help finding your way to Fisk Hall for our fellowship hour, any member of the church will be happy to guide you. Just look for someone wearing a Universalist Church name tag. You can find the link for Zoom fellowship in your weekly news or our Breeze calendar. If you aren't getting the weekly news, please do sign up for it on our website. And now, I invite you to take a moment to make your mobile phone silent, turn off your email, put away your keyboards, and settle in for worship.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our summer season. If it has not yet felt like summer to you, I'm sure today does. I'm going to ask somebody to help us put a fan back in. Thank you, Anna. That would be great. I only need one fan up here, but I want to make sure that we have some good breeze equally distributed as much as possible throughout the sanctuary. If you have a home chalice or candle, I invite you to light that now as I light ours here in the sanctuary. Whether you're watching at home or here in the sanctuary, we light our chalice to remind us that we are surrounded by blessings. Loved ones with whom we share our lives, friends, including those we haven't met yet. A world of beauty and possibility, and the power that each of us have to reach out to others with compassion, respect, the ability to ask questions, seek answers, explore new ways of being, as we all work together to make a better life for the people of this earth. Our opening hymn is number 34 in the gray hymnal, number 34. Please rise in body or in spirit here in the sanctuary or wherever you are as we sing together. Please join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's printed in your order of service, and it's in the description online as well. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please be seated.
Our Time for All Ages story today is a story called Nothing More Than Nothing. Winter was coming to an end, or so it seemed, but every so often there would be just one more flurry, one more snowstorm. The birds were amazed at how long the winter went on and found themselves discussing the properties of snow. The chickadees and the cardinals chattered and thrilled. And finally, a titmouse spoke in a very quiet voice to the wild dove sitting next to her. "Tell me the weight of a snowflake." "Nothing more than nothing," said the dove. "Oh, I had no idea. In that case, I must tell you a marvelous story," the titmouse said. "I sat on the branch of a fir, close to its trunk, when it began to snow. Not heavily, not in a raging blizzard. No, just like in a dream, without a wound and without any violence. Since I did not have anything better to do, I counted the snowflakes settling on the twigs and needles of my branch. Their number was exactly 3,741,952. When the 3,741,393rd dropped onto the branch, nothing more than nothing, as you say, the branch broke off. Having told her story, the titmouse flew away. The dove, an authority on many things since the time of Noah, thought about the story for a while, and finally said to herself, "Perhaps there is only one person's voice lacking for peace to come to the world."
The voluntary offering, the sharing of our resources for our shared work as a congregation, is a spiritual practice for us. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us serve our members, our friends, and the wider community of which we are a part. As part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that do work in the world that help us to becoming the beloved community. This month, we share our plate with UU the Vote. UU the Vote is an initiative created by the Unitarian Universalist Association's Side with Love team, providing us an easy-to-engage opportunity to bring our democratic values to life in the crucial struggle to build a genuine multiracial democracy. UU the Vote engages people in voter registration, issue education, get out the vote drives, voter protection, state leadership development, and more. UU the Vote does year-round work toward building a truly inclusive democracy. To give electronically, you can use the QR codes on your order of service, the links in the description, or those on our website to make your donation to our offering. And here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received. May these gifts so generously given sustain the work that we do together, the life of this community, and support the wider world of which we are most certainly a part. Thank you. Thank you. Please rise in body or in spirit as we speak our congregational reading. It is number 658 in the gray hymnal, number 658 in the back. It's called To Risk. I'll read the words in Roman type, and we'll speak together the words in italics. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams, before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. Let's join in singing our doxology. It too is in your order of service and the description online. Praise God for love we all may share. Praise God for beauty everywhere. Praise God for hope of good to be. Praise God for that makes us free. Amen. Please be seated. I have a couple of things to share with you. If you were in attendance here or watching at home last Sunday, you saw the General Assembly Sunday morning worship. General Assembly is when our congregations come together every year to do the business of the faith, to vote on all sorts of things, to worship, to learn, to celebrate. And this past General Assembly, some pretty momentous things happened. A number of votes occurred. We have some new board members. But the thing that we have been talking about here a little bit is the covenant among the congregations. In the past, we have used what we called the principles and purposes for about 40 years. And that is surprising because our bylaws ask us to revise those every 15. And they stayed largely the same for almost 40 years. This past General Assembly, the congregations, the delegates, voted to adopt new language for this. And so we will be rolling that out and explaining that to you more and more in the days and weeks and months to come. It goes from 7 statements to 7 words, 7 values that are a little bit easier to remember. There's even an acronym. The acronym is JETPIG. I'm not kidding. There are all sorts of pictures online of cute little piglets with jetpacks on the back. But what it does is it helps folks to remember this even a little bit more easily than 7 words can be remembered otherwise. So I'm just going to leave you with a little bit of tantalizing thoughts. Look up the JETPIG if you like, and you'll hear more about all of this very, very soon. I also want to share with you that Patricia M's brother had died a little while ago, and she's just returned from grieving with her family. So we are holding you in our thoughts and prayers as well as your whole family today. Please join with me in a moment of prayer and meditation. For some of us, prayer is a daily occurrence. For others, it's something that we once gave up. For some of it's something we never learned to do. In these moments, let us remember that prayer is a way to lift up the things that we feel most deeply, know most truly, seek most persistently, grieve most profoundly, and celebrate most joyfully. In times of prayer, we are able to consider the whole of our lives and the needs of our world in a way that we often do not. So whether you are praying to or praying about, or just meditating, holding close in your heart. In moments like this, may we all reach beyond ourselves to discover all to which we are connected. May we look within ourselves to understand the fullness of our being. May we find that all we know to be sacred holds us closely when we need support and comfort, and sets us free when we are ready to explore and grow. May our fears be relieved. May our striving for justice be stoked. May our ambitions be turned toward that which heals the world. May our flaws and our failures help us learn compassion and to do better. And may our gifts and successes be blessings to all around us. Let us take a moment in stillness for the prayers of our hearts. May we remember that these times of prayer are simply a way for us to lift up those things that are deepest, most important. May we be filled with the knowledge that there is room for us all within our covenant, and that each of us may know what is holy by a different name. Yet we may know holiness by the best of what we see in one another and the world. May that holiness, that goodness, come to each and every one of us, each and every day. May it be so. Amen.
Our first reading is entitled Fearing Paris by poet Marcia Truman Cooper. Suppose that what you fear could be trapped and held in Paris. Then you would have the courage to go everywhere in the world, all the directions of the compass open to you, except the degrees east or west of true north that lead to Paris. Still, you wouldn't dare put your toes smack dab on the city limit line. You're not really willing to stand on a mountainside miles away and watch the Paris lights come up at night. Just to be on the safe side, you decide to stay completely out of France. But then the danger seems too close, even to those boundaries, and you feel the timid part of you covering the whole globe again. You need the kind of friend who learns your secret and says, see Paris first. Our second reading is entitled A Drop in the Bucket by UU minister Gordon McKeeman. What it says about inadequacy, futility, insignificance, a drop in the bucket. What's the sense? What's the use? We're no longer in the center of things. Copernicus removed the Earth from the center of the solar system. Darwin removed humans from the center of the Earth. Astronomy has removed the solar system from the center of the universe. Well, who are we then, and where are we? Physiologists call us weak, watery solutions, more or less jellified. Just suppose that we are the merest drops in a bucket. There are unspoken assumptions here. We assume that a full bucket is what we're aiming at, and that, until the bucket is full, nothing has been accomplished. There is never a shortage of buckets. The empty bucket litany is long and tedious. Racism, sexism, ableism, authoritarianism, oppression, injustice, violence, environmental degradation, overpopulation. You feel like a drop in the bucket? Who asked you to fill the bucket, especially all alone? Remember how many there are who share your concern. We may feel daunted, but we are not one drop. A sense of isolation is the parent of the drop in the bucket feeling. Sometimes one can decide the size of the bucket. Don't think you can do a large bucket? Try a smaller size. Even imparting a bit of hope, a pat on the back, a financial contribution, a few hours of volunteer service, every drop helps. It might even be wise to remember why you need to help fill this bucket, possibly to quench the thirst of someone hard at work on a larger one. That buckets of whatever size are filled a drop at a time. If you don't help, it will take even longer. That your drop may be one of the last ones needed. Why is it that our image is of the first drop of the bucket? Where we'd be if everybody gave up putting drops in the bucket? Probably much worse off. Persistence depends on patience, on keeping at it when there is little to reassure us. It would be too bad to give up, to sit back, bemoan the sorry state of the world, and wonder why somebody, anybody, everybody, but not me, thank you, doesn't do something about it. After all, the Grand Canyon was fashioned by drops of water, as ordinary as they seem.
Marcia Truman Cooper writes, "Suppose that what you fear could be trapped and held in Paris. Then you would have the courage to go everywhere in the world. All the directions of the compass open to you, except the degrees east or west of the true north that lead to Paris. Still, you wouldn't dare to put your toes smack dab on the city limit line. You're not really willing to stand on a mountainside miles away to watch the Paris lights come up at night. Just to be on the safe side, you decide to stay completely out of France. But then the danger seems too close even to those boundaries, and you feel the timid part of you covering the whole globe again. You need the kind of friend who learns your secret and says, 'See Paris first.'" This is one of my favorite poems. There's something wonderful about the idea of a friend who can tell you, face your fear, take that risk right up front. Everything after that is easier. What a good and terrible friend that would be. Right? Somebody who's wise enough to dare you to face the things that prevent you from living fully or from knowing yourself better, from engaging with the world. Someone who would ask that you trust, truly trust that you can survive your fears and even live better for having faced them. That friend would be someone who can help you see when it is time to take a wise and necessary risk. Perhaps you have such a good and terrible friend in your life. I hope so. Maybe it's another person, or maybe it's an animal, a pet. Maybe it's a piece of literature or an abstract ideal. Maybe it's the sacred or nature or God. Or maybe, if no one else, perhaps occasionally it's me. I think we all need this kind of friend. We all need somebody who can shake us loose from our comforts, from our self-imposed limitations. We need to be reminded of what is possible, and that it is within our power to move toward that greater possibility. There are many things in this world that try to limit us. Gordon McKeeman gives us a lengthy list. Racism, sexism, ableism, authoritarianism, oppression, injustice, violence, environmental degradation, overpopulation. I would add simply despair. We have all sorts of things within ourselves that conspire with those outer impositions upon our souls. Timidity, fear, self-doubt, arrogance, hatred, apathy. It does not take much to encourage us to remain within whatever constraints we find ourselves surrounded by. It's easy to just settle in, to hide a bit, to let our fear cover the entire globe rather than allow us to even get close to Paris. But that's not how we grow or learn or transform. We become by going beyond our current limitations. And when we have to challenge ourselves or the world to make that possible, sometimes it is a wild and illogical action that gets us through. But it can also be a strategic choice, a calculated option, a wise but necessary risk that moves us even just a little bit further. Sharon Welch, who is a Unitarian Universalist ethicist and professor, was a professor, she's now retired, at Meadville Lombard, our seminary in Chicago. She wrote a book called A Feminist Ethic of Risk. and it engaged Black American literature and the work of womanist theologians and ethicists. It's a term used by many Black female religious scholars, womanism. It comes from some of Alice Walker's work. To highlight the power of risk to make change for ourselves and the world. She writes, "Some situations call for an ethic of risk, an ethic that begins with the recognition that we cannot guarantee decisive changes in the near future or even in our lifetime. The ethic of risk recognizes that to stop resisting is to die. And the death that accompanies acquiescence to overwhelming problems is multidimensional. Perhaps the threat of physical death, or the death of the imagination, the death of our ability to care. An ethic of risk is characterized by a redefinition of responsible action, grounding in community and strategic risk-taking." I'm going to use those words again because they rattle off pretty quickly. A redefinition of responsible action. Saying that it might be necessary to do a thing that seems risky in order to avoid worse possibilities. Grounding in community. We don't do these things alone. And strategic risk-taking. Sometimes we do a wild and illogical thing that helps, but more often than not, we think, and we plan, and we talk with one another, and we make choices, kind of like playing a gigantic game of chess to move us ever closer to the world that we want to live in. That ethic, that idea of risk-taking, is necessary for our own spiritual growth as well as our communities of faith. Only by willing to be vulnerable or imperfect or uncertain can we then take the necessary and incremental steps to reach deeper meaning, relationality, to fulfill and expand our covenants, to be more fully engaged with our spiritual natures. So in being told to see Paris first, we are challenged to go beyond our limitations, to become something new within ourselves and with one another. An ethic of risk calls us to engage with our spiritual journey individually and as a community, even and especially when we don't know where it will lead, in order to be more fully alive. I have often been asked, what role does faith have in a UU church, in a denomination like this, in a self that is UU? And part of the challenge is the word faith means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. We all come with what we think it was from wherever we came from, whether we thought about it a lot or not much. So if by faith you mean belief in something unseen, the answer is going to be different than faith meaning hoping that everything will turn out okay in the end. So I'm going to give you a definition of faith, and then I'm going to answer that question, what role does faith have, to the best of my ability. If faith means meeting everything with trust in what is good and willingness to transform what is not. If faith means meeting everything with trust in what is good and willingness to transform what is not good, then faith is absolutely central to our religion, our spiritualities, and our relationships. And with this definition, it's possible, totally acceptable, to have faith in something beyond yourself. Perhaps it's divinity or God, but it's also certainly possible and thoroughly acceptable to have simply faith as a willingness to trust in good and transform the bad. Faith is just an orientation of the mind and the heart and the soul. Faith is a way of being that makes room for all sorts of friends who tell us to see Paris first. And this kind of faith is the kind that actually makes it easy for us to say, my faith calls me to do this, or I have faith that we will overcome this evil. And in this way, faith is the thing that makes living with an ethic of risk possible. Trust in what is good does not imply perfect safety. Willingness to transform doesn't necessarily mean success. A faith of this kind has risk built into it. Faith is a wise and necessary risk in a world where it would be easy to choose as little risk as possible, to keep our heads down and our mouths shut, and just wait out whatever we're not happy with. But instead, faith, trusting in good and transforming what isn't, calls us to move to meet challenges, to fix the brokennesses of life. Faith asks us to take one more step, to make the next right action. Faith believes that any one of us might be that next drop in the bucket that causes it to overflow. Or that we might be that 3,741,953rd snowflake. That one more voice that tips us all over into peace. Faith is the way in which I strive to meet the world. It's how I engage with all of you. It's how I engage with my own inner life in order to bring the whole of myself into being too. And when I talk about bringing myself into being, I'm not just talking about kind of putting all of my personality on display for you to see, though that probably sometimes happens. I'm not just talking about letting every idea that I have running through my mind flit across my face, or all of my thoughts just get blurted out of my mouth, though sometimes that also does happen. What I mean by the true self, bringing my full self into being, is that I go and look for all of the things that matter most to me, the things that I am most committed to, the relationships that I most cherish, the hopes and potentials that I most strive to see exist, and I do everything I can to make that real. I learn more about myself that way. And that happens because of faith, trusting good and transforming bad. I do that with myself. I hope to do that with you and in the world. And it is a risk. I may learn something that shakes my understanding of who I am, or I may learn something, or we may learn something that causes us to have to change what we were planning on. I may discover that I have a prejudice or a tendency that I don't like and did not know about. I may encounter an aspect of who I am that I thought I'd set aside long, long ago, and now it's come back. I may find that I have a purpose, a goal that is big and wonderful and terrifying. Without faith to support that risk I take to know myself better, I would be hard-pressed to take on that work. Without a commitment to trusting the good and transforming the bad, we have a hard time staying the spiritual course. We would have a very difficult time striving to create beloved community, to make this world a better place. Gordon McKeeman writes, "We assume that a full bucket is the bucket that we're aiming at. That until the bucket is full, nothing has been accomplished. But there is never a shortage of buckets. You feel like a drop in the bucket? Well, who asked you to fill that bucket, especially all by yourself? Remember how many there are in the world who share your concerns. We each may feel daunted, but we are not just one drop. A sense of isolation is the parent of the drop in the bucket feeling. Sometimes we get to decide the size of the bucket. Don't think you can do a large bucket? Try a smaller size. Buckets of whatever size are filled a drop at a time. And if you don't help, it will take even longer. I really love Gordon McKeeman's question that he ends this section with. Why is it that our image is of the first drop in the bucket? Why don't we envision ourselves as the drop that causes that quivering edge of water right on the lip of the bucket to spill over and overflow? Why don't we each see ourselves as that last snowflake, the one that causes the branch to break, the nothing more than nothing that changes everything? Our ability to choose wise and necessary risk is not just an ongoing process, but it is an ethical commitment. Change in the world may seem like it's just drops in a bucket. Changing ourselves to try what isn't immediately comfortable can be risky. These things demand newness from us. They ask us to try things, but gradually sometimes, with practice, chosen carefully, as well as occasionally with wild abandon. We learn how to take risks by watching other people do it too. The lessons of our stories, the experiences of family and friends, seeing how risks pay off. The growth of faith, trusting what is good and transforming what is bad, occurs in small steps and great leaps. But more to the point, faith grows because it becomes a habit, a way of life, a covenant with all of ourselves and all of creation that we act on again and again, a choice we make repeatedly to trust what is good and transform what is bad. And that's why risk and faith are tied so closely together. Faith, trusting good, transforming bad, is what allows us to be the best we can be, individually, together, with the all that is, however you might call that holiness, that largeness. Faith is what allows us to recognize the kinds of friends who say to us, "See Paris first." And a commitment to wise and necessary risk is what allows us to know when we need to board the plane and go. And so in this season, with all that there is coming up ahead of us, take a risk. Have some faith. And every day, try again. Take a risk. Have some faith until it becomes a way of life that lets you, all of us, all together, take these faithful risks for the sake of ourselves and one another and this world that needs us so very, very much. May it be so. Please rise, in body or in spirit, as we join in singing our closing hymn. It's number 168 in the gray hymnal, number 168, called One More Step. Let us speak together our unison benediction. It speaks to faith and risk, and it's printed in your order of service and the description online. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. And please be seated and remain for our postlude.